welcome to a brand new episode of Sequel Rights, the podcast where we take a look at the franchises that make you go, they made how many of those? And we give each and every sequel a fair trial. My name is Justin Camps, and on first base we have...
Elizabeth Helly.
And third base...
Tyler Hymanson.
And welcome to baseball season on Sequel Rights!
Yeah, finally!
Woo. Tyler's favorite time of the year.
It is the best time of the year.
We're actually dedicating the whole episode to our segment, Tyler's Insider Baseball.
Tyler's Inside Baseball.
So Eliz and I are going to turn off our mics, and here goes Tyler, and go.
Well, if you haven't watched Ken Burns' baseball documentary, start there.
Oh,
Pause
dear
this.
God. Hurry up. Introduce the movie and play the trailer.
I'm already asleep. So we're talking about Major League this week. And why don't you guys sit down, pour yourself some Jack, crack open a Miller Lite, and watch the trailer.
Harry Doyle here, welcoming all of you to another season of Indians baseball.
Here's a list of players we'll be inviting to camp.
This guy here is dead.
Cross him off, then.
We'd love for you to come to spring training for a shot at this year's club.
By the way, you were with me last night. Who's this chick on top of me?
We'd still like to take a look at you at our spring camp.
Not sure I can make it by then.
Who is that?
Serrano.
What's his religion? Voodoo.
Hey! Willie Mays Hayes here. Play like Mays, and I run like Hayes. How you doing? What the hell league you been playing in?
California Penal.
Don't you have any proven major league talent?
Now, I want to put together a team that'll help us relocate to Miami.
You want us to lose?
We've been losing. What I want is for us to finish dead last.
This year, the Cleveland Indians have a multi-talented team.
The first offering, just a bit outside.
They're masters of the sacrifice.
He's looking to sacrifice a live chicken.
One whole chicken, just like you said.
The double play.
Excuse me.
I have a much better body than she does.
Big for me, she really does.
And the pickoff.
Every time we win, we peel a section.
Baseball, baseball, baseball.
The Cleveland Indians.
What year?
1989. The year is 1989.
The year is 1989.
The Indians have not finished within 11 games of first place in about 30 years.
Yes, and, we get a lovely fucking Randy Newman song to start
That's right.
off this goddamn...
Okay, I cannot believe this. Tyler, what were you going to say about it?
Oh, I was gonna follow up with the music pedigree on this movie is actually pretty fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. I just don't like the song.
Yeah.
This song is ridiculous.
I was like...
It's like sounding like a Cleveland Pride song, but it's all about the burning river, which was a tragedy, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I'm like, is Cleveland really as nice as he's making it sound? City of light, city of magic.
Light of the river being on fire.
What's the magic part, though?
Well, it's all the dead magicians.
I've never been
They were on a boat.
I don't think I've ever really been to Cleveland, so I can't attest to it.
I haven't been to
I've been there.
It is a city of magic.
My best buddy growing up, he was my best friend in kindergarten, Drew Chesser, and one of the producers of this movie is a Chesser, and his family is from Ohio, and he's an Indians fan, and so I want to get to the bottom of this. Drew, if you're listening, you need to call me. We need to find out if your uncle made this movie. But yeah, no, Cleveland's not that pretty. I've never been. He enjoys the town. It's where his family's from.
Yeah, I was like, what this song does for me in the opening is lock this movie squarely in a time period for me.
Well,
it's
and it's so us
late
being
80s, early 90s.
Us being
Randy
here,
Newman.
if you go to Dodgers games or even Lakers games, the I Love LA is the song
That's
that
right.
they play at the end of every game. It's Randy Newman.
Randy Newman's a
Spoiler
hussy.
alert,
He's
I
a
hate that
hussy.
song too.
I didn't even know that he had songs for other cities.
He's slutting around with other cities.
I was so offended. I can't believe it.
How many cities have you sung to, Randy? How many? I thought you loved me, L.A.
He loves
City
LA.
of magic. We're not a magical
Which,
city.
incidentally, not getting into this, the first time that I heard I Love LA was in the Mr. Bean movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good one.
He goes to the Getty.
Also, speaking of music, friggin' score by James Newton
Howard.
Howard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Also, it doesn't sound like anything he does
No,
nowadays.
no, not at all.
Well, and the score is like very 80s, 90s like movie too.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I don't know, it also really like transported me back to that time.
Well, he had a lot of work to do because for a lot of people, this is the best baseball movie ever made.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, it's Bull Durham. I'm one of those people. But I really do love Major League. And one of the things that the movie does that James Newton Howard had to do a lot of heavy lifting with is because baseball teams have a lot of guys on them. There's like 9 of them on a field at a time.
What?
And in order for all these stories to happen, the only viable storytelling tool is the montage. And so James Newton Howard had a lot of montage 80s stuff to do because literally this movie is just montage, element change, montage.
Romance plot,
montage.
But I love the montages.
Oh, no, the montages are fantastic. Like, the movie is actually structured incredibly well, and I feel like it's going to be weird to say, but, like, even some of the Avengers movies kind of borrow from, like, having this many characters and giving them all arcs to have.
There was so much in this movie that I was like, oh, I've seen that copied a million times and didn't realize it.
Yep. And we can talk about David S. Ward, who, lifelong Indians fan, wrote and directed this movie. Oftentimes he said the reason that he directed it and made it it was the only way he'd be able to see Cleveland win. In baseball playoffs in the World Series, which they do not make it to the World Series in this movie.
Is that not the World Series?
They don't even make it to this is them getting, like, finishing
pennant, right?
Yeah, it's the playoffs. It's before the playoffs even start.
Oh, so just like Angels in the Outfield.
Yeah.
Okay. They're
Absolutely.
just going for the pennant.
The pennant.
Okay.
Yeah. And
spoilers for Angels in the Outfield.
but David,
everybody knows, like, if the Angels win the pennant, okay, like
Joseph Gordon-Levitt gets a daddy.
Yeah.
So he had written The Sting and was a prominent screenwriter, and this is, I believe, his directorial debut. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay.
But his whole thing was lifelong Cleveland sports, Indians fan, and he was like, I'm just going to make this baseball movie, and it's actually incredibly well crafted, and I think that the script... there's a lot of cliches, and the montages are just like, okay, like, I get it. Like, it feels very sitcom-y at some points.
There were some things that I was just, like, genuinely laughing at a bunch of this stuff. Like,
and they do, it does give arcs to most of these characters. Most of these characters start somewhere and then grow and learn something, and that's hard to do.
Yeah, I was going to say that I had seen this movie in the past, but my memory of it was being way funnier than it was when I just watched it this last time. I thought, like...
You were thinking it was like a Tommy Boy or something, like a straight up comedy.
More like Naked Gun.
I also thought that going into this because I've never seen it before, and
like,
so I thought it was going to be in the same vein as Naked Gun.
Yeah, so the comedy in this felt like more quaint to me.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, I chuckled a couple times, but I never like flat out.
Aww.
I never flat out guffawed.
There's definitely funny. I mean, so I think that, and maybe I'm wrong on this, I think that this movie, the reason this movie endures so much and why it was playing on TBS pretty much once a day, every day, which the one thing I have to mention about that is that I think that's how I watched it, and I was watching it again, this week in preparation for the show. It was like, I didn't realize there was this much fucking swearing in this movie.
I cannot believe this movie is rated R. Only because there's so many F words.
Yeah,
but there's no boobs, there's no violence, barely. No. There's nothing. It's just so ridiculous.
And the only reason it's rated R is because that's just how baseball players talk.
Yeah.
It was just them speaking normally.
There, some of the swear words were used to great effect in this, so I think it's worth it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'm not saying that since I didn't think it was as funny as I remembered that it was a bad movie.
Sure.
I just ended up thinking that it was like a really good baseball movie, and not even, it's in the comedy vein, but it just plays like a quality sports film.
Yeah, it's a really great sports film, and it does, like I said, it has all the characters in the team, it has all the interplay, and it involves the town, it kind of involves that plight. There's a lot of stuff that people, even if you're not a sports fan, I think that resonate and gives you an identity of just living in a town and knowing these type of things. And I think that one of the things it does that I think is very, very true about professional athletes, and especially baseball players, is that they're all just big kids. And the movie actually addresses kind of masculinity issues of them being like, you know, like they're just playing this game and then they're trying to have real lives and they kind of can't.
Yeah.
And the movie uses that as a joke, but it also kind of takes it seriously, and it does it in a way where there's these archetypes on a team, where I think that the archetypes, if you've followed a team or if you've read your sports section, you know this guy, you know these guys. And there's something universal and ever present about them that I think is incredibly familiar and why this movie is beloved.
Yeah, there's actually a whole special feature on the Blu-ray, the Wild Thing edition. That's all just like other Cleveland Indians players and other baseball players talking about how like this movie was one of the reasons they wanted to become a baseball player in the first place, and that it's like one of the most realistic depictions of the camaraderie in the locker room and everything. And I think that's really cool, and I think that's another part of the reason why it's important.
One of the best testaments to that is Bob Uecker, who plays Harry
so
Doyle.
Funny.
He was a former player at the time. He was an actor. Now he is the broadcaster for the Milwaukee Brewers.
He actually is?
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He has been since like 1972.
Oh,
yes.
That's so funny.
And so much of, but former player and one of the greatest raconteurs in baseball. Like if you watch anything, Bob Uecker's on there telling a story, and he's basically Harry Doyle.
Yeah.
And what David S. Ward did oftentimes during the filming of this movie would just tell, Uecker some semblance of what was happening in the field and some like brief interview. Most of this is ad-lib by him. Like it's just him. Like this is just shit that I've heard other people saying.
He's so great.
Yeah.
I actually saw him once in Milwaukee. We used to go. My dad's work used to get like box tickets all the time.
Oh, nice.
We were walking to our box, and he walked by, and my dad was like, "That's Bob Uecker," and I was like, "Oh my god!" It's pretty cool.
And we should say that most of this movie is I'm sure that was Miller Park, but
yeah, it was. Yeah.
But most of this movie was filmed in Milwaukee at County Stadium.
Yeah, it was great to see County Stadium because I actually went to some games there before it got torn down. And it was just a big like nostalgia trip.
As did my mother and my grandfather.
Oh man, that's awesome.
My grandfather saw a World Series game.
It was a great stadium, but it was getting old.
Yes,
and Miller Park is amazing. So I don't miss it that much.
You can go down the Miller Park. For those who don't know, is where the Brewers play currently, and there is a water slide where their mascot rides down every time a home run is hit.
And the cool thing about County Stadium, they kept the baseball field and turned that section into a Little League baseball field.
I did not know that.
And
that
then,
is awesome.
Yeah, so the field is still the same field that they used to play on. And then the rest is a parking lot for Miller Park. But it's pretty cool.
As much as I love talking about baseball, let's get into a little bit of the plot of this movie.
Montage by montage.
Montage by montage. So, the owner, not unlike the McCourts who owned the Dodgers, he dies, and his showgirl wife, as the press has been calling her, takes over. And we find out pretty quickly that she does not want to be in Cleveland anymore, and she is trying to move the team.
Yeah, and she's like, here's the guys you're going to call in for spring training, and gives them this list. And this has one of my favorite jokes.
Yeah.
They're like going through the list like, this guy, what? And then she's like, yeah, just call him up. Yep. And then the one guy goes, this guy here is dead. And she's like, well, cross him off then.
That's like a Mr. Burns, like, Simpsons joke of like, this guy's dead.
I love that scene.
Great.
That was like one of my favorites.
Yeah, when they were putting the team together, like, I was kind of like, these are all like old white guys and I don't like any of them, you know, but like I would say throughout the movie, like by the end I sort of like appreciated or respected almost all of them, which was kind of like, so it's cool seeing how they picked a bunch of younger guys that were crazy and then guys that were just really old, basically.
Yeah. And they like the leads in this movie don't seem like the type of leads you would see in a movie nowadays.
None of them,
except for maybe Charlie Sheen, probably.
But none of them have their shit figured out. Like I think that's the thing that's kind of like when I was going to watch this movie, I was like, how? Because some of these movies we've gone back to is like they've been problematic, right?
Yeah.
And like I was like, how problematic is this movie going to be? And in a lot of ways, there are ways that it is.
Yeah.
The answer is a bit.
A bit. but it was less than I was actually expecting.
Good.
because I think that Tom Bergeron's character is the one who does a lot of the like.
Tom Bergeron?
Oh, what did I say?
No.
Not Tom Bergeron.
Tom Bergeron's the guy from
Yeah. America's
Tom
Fun.
Berenger, I think is what you're trying to say, right?
America's Funniest Home Videos.
Yeah.
Please.
I was like, that name doesn't quite sound right.
Tom Berenger. He does some hardcore stalking. But I feel like that there's so much of these guys. All these guys are trying to be better and trying to be more than what they are, and they all know that they're flawed in a way that I think makes the movie ring true and makes all of their arcs feel satisfying. And you kind of know these guys. Like I said, they are archetypes in a way where if you've watched any baseball team, you recognize them.
Yeah,
but the movie does a really good job of characterizing them and making them feel unique.
Yeah, the main thing that I could have done without in the movie is the Serrano voodoo stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
It is very racist, but it's really funny.
It's also true.
Some of it is true. Obviously, they exaggerated it a lot. I mean, Santeria is a thing in Cuba, but like they really come on.
I didn't think it was that funny, personally. And I was just kind of like, okay, can we move on from this? I don't know. I felt like there's probably people that love this movie and think that is like the funniest shit in the movie.
It's a thing.
And but I was just like,
when the Indians were in the World Series, they made a shrine to Jobu.
Yeah,
and they put
I googled it. You can buy bobbleheads. You can buy the figure. You can buy shirts with it. Everything.
I just didn't like it.
One of my favorite players is my favorite player is Vladimir Guerrero. He's Dominican, and not that I'm saying that he practiced Santeria,
right?
But I think that
I just think that the movie plays like you're supposed to be laughing at this guy the whole time.
I don't think so. I liked him a lot.
Do you think that I mean, there's the old pitcher who's tries to say a prayer, and they take the piss out of him too.
Yeah, that's
and then he like it's basically them both saying like both your religions are superstition. Yeah, and they come together at the end.
I guess. I don't know.
I think that to me it's more about baseball players being superstitious than actually being about religion. And I think that they're using his beliefs as a foil to the Christian guy being
I think both of them are over exaggerated for parody's sake.
Absolutely. I don't think you're supposed to be laughing at like what crazy thing does he believe? It's like because they all believe just as crazy shit.
Yeah, I suppose.
Because all baseball players have, like, they're the most superstitious motherfuckers out there.
I just don't believe that everyone will see that.
I understand.
Dichotomy the same
I understand.
Way, but yeah, I don't know.
That being said, yeah, I watched this movie when I was 7.
Yeah.
And thought that Serrano was hilarious.
I was just really surprised because I haven't seen Dennis Haysbert really in anything other than like 24 and Allstate commercials. Right. And so I was like, he's hilarious. And also he was super hot then. I was like, who is this man?
Do you want him to be even more attractive?
Sure.
Because this is fucking true. He, in that final scene where he hits that home run, he hit that fucking home run.
I heard that, yeah.
Like,
I heard he hit a bunch.
He hit a bunch, yeah. That the interesting thing about this movie is that most people in it actually played baseball. Mm-hmm. Charlie Sheen, famously in an interview, I think it was in 2011. Well, first Charlie Sheen pitched in high school and then had a scholarship offering to pitch in college. Mm-hmm. And what he said in 2011 is that he took steroids so that he could pitch faster for this movie, which is like whatever. But Bob Uecker, when he saw him pitch, said that he could have been professional, like he could have been, one of the greats. And most people. In Corbin Benson,
Tom Berenger,
Tom Bergeron, and the guy, the old Christian, the pitcher who has
Harris. No, yeah,
it is Harris.
Yeah, Harris.
All pitched and all played.
And like the actors all went to they did a 2-week baseball academy,
like a boot camp. Yep.
And they had Steve Yeager on set to help train them,
which is awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Of the Dodgers.
I was surprised I guess this is just me being biased, and I guess it hasn't really been that long, but I was surprised that most of those guys are still alive.
Yeah.
Like almost the entire cast almost is still alive.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. Like I think just back then they just cast people in movies that were actually like the right ages.
Well, that's what I was saying.
That look really younger.
They're not casting all the hot guys. They're like casting a bunch of like kind of schlubby looking dudes.
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
aren't like
well,
the super sexy.
no, they cast
lead actor.
dudes who look like baseball players.
Yeah, exactly.
Like one of my favorite characters in this movie is Willie Mays Hayes, and how they played by Wesley Snipes, and which he turned down a role and Do the Right Thing to
That's
do
what
this
I heard,
movie.
yeah.
And because it was a big role, but he did plenty of movies with Spike Lee after this. But the conceit is that they want to move the team Miami. Let's put together a bunch of rejects and make the worst team ever.
Mm-hmm.
They bring in a manager who has only managed I think was an overseas league, or was it AAA?
It was something like the Mud
Hens.
something.
Yeah. And like they're gonna be a bunch of garbage. You don't have to worry about it. And then Wesley Snipes. So you get all these guys, and you get Charlie Sheen was in prison, and
Yeah, I love that scene where he's like, "Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be able to make it in time." He's like,
he's in his orange, doing the phone call from his one call a day, and and everyone else is too old or whatever. And Willie Mays Hayes rolls up in a Rolls Royce. And he's basically, it becomes obvious very quickly that he's just fronting, trying to get in. But there's a scene where like security comes in. You think they're going to take Charlie Sheen out.
So crazy.
Yeah.
And then they take Willie Mays Hayes out in the dumbest way possible. Like,
so funny.
But here's the magic of this movie, because it's like this is like a Naked Gun joke.
That was one of the few non-realistic things.
Where security like lifts up a bunk bed and drops him off in like his like royal pajamas that he's sleeping in, and then everyone's out there running 50s, and then it like cuts to like a slow motion shot of him just like in his pajamas like beating these guys out. And like I feel like that shot is a lot of the reason why a lot of baseball players and people say this is like an inspiring movie to them, because it's just like, I'm not supposed to be here. Nobody knows who I am. No one gives me the respect. But like I can show you that like that's the type of opportunity that these type of teams have. And it's something. It's like a Rudy moment that's played from a joke, which is why like that's basically the nucleus of this movie. Of like, hey, here's this like a bunch of misfits coming together and stepping up in a way that's meaningful, that looks ridiculous. Baseball.
Training montage commence.
Yep.
Of course, they suck at first, just like the lady wanted.
They're terrible.
Yeah, we get that great scene. They start playing their first games, and Bob Uecker's like, "Listen to the roar of the crowd of the Indians. Take the field." And he holds the mic out, and he's like, nobody's screaming. Okay, whatever.
But like, it's because the second time he did it, he just takes the mic and goes like, "Yeah, go Indians!"
And
like,
he said that's something he used to do.
Oh yeah, absolutely
in real life.
And there's something that's great about this movie too, and I think that again, it's something that makes it long lasting, is that when we see these like interstitials between the montages of the town, and people like, you get characters in like diners and people around.
You get the janitor from Scrubs.
You get the janitor from Scrubs, and apparently a cut Jeremy Piven. But and they're kind of commenting on what's happening, and they're like, "Oh, it's gonna be a good year before," and then they see like who makes the team. They're like, "These guys fucking suck." Like, they're
like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" And then they're like, Michael Freeman or something like that.
My favorite, of course, predictably, was the Japanese groundskeepers.
Indeed.
Every time
they're
shitty. Yeah, they're shitty. It was like, hontoni takuso desne.
Incidentally, that was actually a father and son.
Yeah.
And they are groundskeepers.
Oh,
nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. So yeah, they totally suck.
And they do a good job in the spring training montage. They totally suck, but you know exactly why each individual player sucks. Like Tom Berenger's, he's old, his knees are terrible. Corbin Burson is a hot shot.
He doesn't try hard enough.
He doesn't try.
Yeah. He doesn't want to get hurt.
He's basically at the end of his contract. Like he's getting paid. He doesn't give a shit. He doesn't have to do anything. Dennis Haysbert can hit every fastball, anything that's a curveball. He just pops up and he's awful. Like he just swings at it and sucks.
Yep.
Like Willie Mays Hayes, he thinks he can hit for power, but he can't, and he just needs to hit ground balls and get on base, but he can't do it. Charlie Sheen cannot throw a strike
Yep.
to save his life.
Yep.
But has
And he has
gas.
temper.
Yep. And the Christian dude, I forget his name.
He's just
Harris?
old, yeah.
He's just old, but he had one of my favorite scenes. Like he takes his shirt off and they're changing in the locker room, and he's like what's all that shit on your chest? And he's like has all these different substances to just knuckle up
He's
the
like,
ball,
canola oil.
which is 100% true.
Yeah. And then he's like, also sometimes I just put some jalapenos under my nose.
Get some snot.
Yeah. And he's like, you put snot on the ball?
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I absolutely do. Which incidentally, David S. Ward had said in the third movie. Okay, David S. Ward wants to make a sequel that's not that like in the fourth movie. I misspoke. That it would be Charlie Sheen talking about taking on that role of
nice.
that character,
Yeah.
basically.
Cool. Well, this is, I think we get introduced to the romance subplot shortly after these first games.
Indeed.
Yeah. So
He's in love with his ex-wife, whose defining characteristic is that she never locks the door.
is it even his ex-wife?
No, ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, I think it's-
really?
I think it's just a girl that he.
I
he
thought
fucked up
that
his
he said
chances
it was his
with.
ex-wife
Yeah.
for some reason. Anyway.
Yeah, Tom Berenger, he was a hotshot player, and then his knees gave out, and then he was in the Mexico leagues, and then he got called back up. And he has a girlfriend that he has not seen in 3 years that has moved on with her life.
Yeah, he cheated on her and
Multiple times.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he never showed interest in her career as a librarian.
Well, at the time, she was a
An
professional swimmer.
Yeah. But anyway, every time he goes to see her, he just walks in.
Yeah.
At both her boyfriend's house and her house 2 times.
Yeah, and I love one of my favorite lines in the movie. She's like, he follows her to where she works at the library, and they're like arguing about how like, oh, you know, we used to be so great together. And she says, I stopped being an athlete 3 years ago. Books are my life now. And she's all mad that he didn't read Moby Dick, or that's what he thinks she's mad about.
Yes, and that's the key. That's what he thinks that she's mad about.
So like,
not
wow, you're
all
mad
the
that I
women
didn't-
that he fucked.
That I didn't read Moby Dick.
I did like how that kept, because then he starts reading Moby Dick as like a comic or like
Yeah.
a comic book version, but then that's the only reading material they have on the crappy
Yes.
bus. So that Charlie Sheen and Wesley Snipes start reading other books as comics. Like they're talking about like I don't remember what the other ones
no,
were,
it was
but they
like
were classic books.
It was
yeah.
like Queequeg and like last of the
As comics.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, so it's Renee, played by Renee Russo. She has a fancy art boyfriend.
Who's a jerk? Who's purposely shoving in his face?
Yep,
Like, yeah.
yep.
So what do we know about what the fans of Cleveland actually do now? Like, so okay, right now they're still the Indians, right, with that same logo and everything.
Chief Wahoo is the super offensive logo. They're phasing it out next year.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So do they still do like the war paint and the feather
They do not.
headdresses?
So like,
do they still have the teepee in the?
They do not.
Okay.
Phew.
Because in this movie, I mean, these people were funny, like in that they were hardcore fans.
Yes.
But it's horrible. All the Indian stuff is just horrible.
Unlike the Washington Football Club, which is not changing their name from the much more offensive Redskins.
Yeah.
Yes. Indians are phasing out the Chief Wahoo logo.
So are they
next
still
year.
going to be the Indians?
I think so.
I think they're still going to be the Indians, but they're not having that cartoon Indian.
Okay.
And they're changing
To something else.
most of that stuff. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean,
it's basically like a C. It's kind of like the
I did think that these characters, if you just think of them in their, as a product of that time, they were really funny. It's like 4 or 5 hardcore fans. They're the only people there. My favorite part was when the guy was like, maybe we should start one of those waves. And it's just 3 guys. And the guy in the middle refuses to do it. So it's just the 2 guys on the end taking turns standing up. So funny.
I thought they were kind of dumb, but I liked the part when one of the other players on the opposite team is hitting a home run, and the one guy's like, I think it's
too high.
And then like they spend the whole rest of the game arguing like, what do you mean it's too high? It can't be too high. What's going on? What does it matter? And you see see, like, the game keeps going on and they're still arguing about what he meant by being too high.
Again, this movie gets to real truth about baseball, where like they are the quintessential baseball fans of just like they're there, they're dedicated. Everyone thinks they know more than everybody else.
Yep.
And they say dumb shit.
Yeah. But I really want the gif of those two guys doing the wave.
Yeah, it's so good. Well, and it is interesting in that it doesn't feel like it is because David S. Ward is such a fan of the Indians and it's such a loving thing. And I feel like the Indians, again, not to talk more shit on the Redskins, but they're it's way too late, but there is nothing offensive about other than the logos that they have and in the depictions of this movie. It's just fans trying to be fans in the times that they were, and it's good to be able to talk about it while their Indians are phasing out.
They're gonna have to change all those awesome vintage like scoreboard animations too.
Yeah.
Well, and then they had many like euphemisms for the different parts of the field that were all like, they're like, and it's off the reservation,
and the wigwam, and
listen up, featherheads, and stuff like that. It's like, oh, okay.
Yep. And some of that's just letting Bob Uecker talk.
Yeah, I know, there is one where he's like, "Oh, he shot that all the way to South America.
Yeah,
gonna need a visa to catch that one."
Right.
Which I thought was kind of funny.
That's not about Indians.
Yeah.
Though.
No, I'm just saying. Like, I'm just saying. There's another like stupid like cultural joke.
And then we get like a female harassing men sexual harassment scene, which is very weird and like tonally strange. But yeah, the character of the owner just walks into the locker room when they're all naked, you know, and she basically just starts like hitting their cups and slapping them on the ass, and it's very
well. And the owner is just like the coach, who I love.
He's so like adorable.
Yeah,
he's like teddy bear
good.
guy.
He's so good in this movie. And like he's standing there naked, and then she's like, "You get a towel?" He's like, "We can't afford towels." And then like, it's like he like does it in a power play, and she's like, "I'm not gonna be fazed by this." Yeah. Apparently. Well, I guess we can get to this. She's a pretty great villain in terms of wanting to move this team, and this is one of those interstitials where we know the concept of like these are a bunch of fuck ups, and we want the teams to succeed at this point because we like these guys and we want to see them do good. And we don't like her, and we kind of get it, but what emerges is that she purposely wants them to lose. And that is something that all these misfits can unify around and then can become selfless in terms of winning.
Try to prove her wrong and see her naked.
Yep, exactly.
Well, yeah, that I thought was really bad. They basically get a cardboard cutout, and she's like, they have her pieces of her dress that they pull off every time they win.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess by the time they're done with it, she's really not naked. She's wearing underwear and she has little pasties on. And so I was kind of like, okay, whatever. Like in that case, they're trying to villainize this person to bring the team together. And yeah, it's like a sexual thing, but at least they didn't go like all the way.
It's like they photoshopped her head onto a cardboard cutout.
Well, also, if she was a Vegas showgirl,
right? No, yeah,
this photo might have existed.
That's actually a very good point.
Yeah.
It's probably just something that they bought.
That's what I was thinking.
And then they put clothes on her.
Yeah. It might have already existed.
So I mean, it's not great. But at the same time, it's like she's the villain, and they're trying.
Here's the reason that I think that it's. I absolutely agree that it is problematic, and again, I'm coming back to it's not as problematic as I thought it was.
Yeah.
But the movie makes these grown men children, and they're trying to grow up, like all of them, and it is a very childish way for them to be motivated and do this. And I think that the movie acknowledges that it's childish. And I think that that's something that kind of softens it. At the same time, not in 2018.
Yeah.
I mean, it's rated R. They could have just as easily had a naked woman body.
I actually thought she was going to be naked.
I did too. And I was kind of like, all right, well, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, they wouldn't put that on a billboard in Vegas. They would put that cardboard cutout on a billboard in Vegas.
Yes.
Yeah. Were you about to bring up the alternate ending thing?
Yes. So when the team is actually doing very, very good, and I guess we can get to a they're tied for first place, and it goes to a 1-game playoff. Which, sorry guys, brief baseball aside. Inside baseball. That a couple of years ago, there was multiple 1-game playoffs for first place. So this is like a rare occasion. What's happening in this movie? It's a 1-game playoff for first place because there was a tie.
Okay.
Right. So what baseball did it's probably more years ago than I actually think it's probably like 6 years ago now. But that there is the wild card used to be the best record out of the people who got first place. Now it forces 1-game playoffs. So the fictional situation that this movie puts out there is now how the playoffs are determined in baseball. Another thing that happened is that most pitchers didn't used to come out to a song.
I was surprised to learn that this movie originated that.
And now all pitchers come out to a song.
All players almost go up to bat and everything. Yeah.
Yep. I gotta say though, that scene in the final game when Charlie Sheen comes out and everyone starts singing Wild Thing. It's such a good scene because it just really reminds you, there's just like some feeling that you can't explain when you're in a sports stadium and everybody is singing the same song.
It's so good.
It's so awesome.
And he looks so badass.
He looks so badass.
Uniform,
I have
the glasses.
All right, guys. All right. I have to. I'm going to go down memory lane and baseball lane here. My grandma lived in San Diego. We went to go a lot of Padres games. The time it was Padres, it was 90s Padres. You got Tony Gwynn, and you had Hall of Fame closer Trevor Hoffman. Trevor Hoffman came out to AC/DC's Hell's Bells. And when Hell's Bells played, you knew that the Padres were about to win a game because Trevor Hoffman was that fucking good. Nice. And when the Overlord trailer's in theaters right now, and it uses that song, and I get like goosebumps hearing it because I'm just like, oh, Trevor Hoffman's coming out, like he's gonna throw the curveball, and there's just something like, just to your point, Eliz, there's something really magical and grounding about that I have to thank this movie for, because
and it's something special too when it's like for some reason like a popular song crosses over. Like it's obviously, I went to USC, I was in the band, but the fight song is great and it's great when everyone sings stuff like that. But when it's like for some reason everybody has been caught up in the moment of the zeitgeist of some popular song that has crossed over, like that is really, really cool for some reason. It's there's nothing quite like it.
The song plays on the menu of the Blu-ray over and over and over.
Did you fall asleep?
I was like, that sounds like someone who fell asleep.
And it has the part in there where the Japanese guy is singing, and it's like I hadn't watched the movie again, so I was like, their voices come up a little louder at one part in it, and I was like, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
Then you see
that's nice that the production company putting the DVD together just lifted that from the audio track.
It is
that way they don't have to pay for this song.
It's one of the that's like an iconic shot, him like leaving the bullpen.
Yes, absolutely.
It's really great.
So I guess we have one thing I like, and let me backtrack to get into this first place game. Because I was talking about her coming into the locker room and kind of setting up that she just wants them to lose.
She's sabotaging them by taking away all luxuries.
That's what they realize. Yeah, like they're on a plane, then they're on a bus, and like they don't have any. I guess they're.
They don't have training equipment. They don't have their physical therapy stuff.
They have nothing, and. Basically, there's a moment in the locker room where they're like, well, we could just we're supposed to suck. That's why we're here. We're all terrible. Mm-hmm. And they realize there's only one thing we can do. Let's just win everything. Let's just prove them all wrong. And the movie earns this moment in a way that I feel like is difficult to do. But you believe it. You believe it in the locker room. You actually believe that every single person that you've met, that you've seen struggle, buys into this dumb, every time they win, we're going to rip a piece of clothing off the owner, cardboard cutout thing, but it earns it in a way.
Oh, and also their lives and their livelihood are at stake, especially for the younger ones,
And the older guys.
Yeah, the older guys want to go out on top, and the younger ones want to be able to keep going.
We skipped over a whole scene where they talk about getting the red tag in your locker.
Oh yeah.
And you see, so like that has already built up stakes, and you know
Yes.
we've seen so many games through montages and stuff, and spent a lot of time with these people. So yeah, you're saying.
So yeah, in spring training, I love the red tag thing because it does a bunch of things. It shows, and they show you. This movie does something that I really love. So the red tag in the locker as you're doing spring training, and if you go back at the end of the day, you see a red tag that you didn't make the team, and your life's over basically. And this is actually two things. One thing the movie does is that they show a guy that we have not seen before, but who is acting his ass off. That he gets the tag and he's just like, fuck, I'm done.
But I liked that what was the main character's name? The character name? The Tom Berenger character?
Jake Taylor.
Taylor.
Yeah.
He kind of becomes like the dad guy, and I really liked that he told Charlie Sheen and Wesley Snipes, he's like, no matter what you see in that locker, you keep your mouth shut until you go outside because there are guys whose lives are over and you don't want to celebrate in front of them. And
that was
so nice.
And that was the second thing that I was going to say. Is like the movie sets up that role where it's like there's these young guys and then there's these old guys, and they're in the same spot because they're vulnerable. Like they're all like none of these dudes are the ultimate badass. I'm going to come out there and destroy. Like I'm the professional athlete. Like they're all vulnerable and they're all kids, in their own way. And like that's the scene I think that is so humanizing and makes him a leader, but also but throughout the course of the movie and his relationship, you see what a child he is.
Yeah.
And he's the guy that they're looking up to.
He is, yeah. I mean, I was kind of like, why are these three guys like friends other than that they're the three big actors, you know, like Charlie Sheen, Wesley Snipes, and this guy. But I still liked it because he was so sweet to them in a weird way. Like it was really cute and nice. Like
I really love there's a scene where Jake Taylor gets back to the main, like when they all make the team and they're back in Cleveland, and he goes out there and is like a little kid pretending he's in the big game, and calling his shot and swings and mimes it around, and he's just like, and it's something that we've all thought that we would do, or you know, if you've had any baseball aspirations, and he fake runs the bases and he's just living the moment. It's something that's played almost like it's something in the natural, like it's this beautiful like thing, and the two young guys are watching him and they're giving him shit for it. And they're laughing at him. They're like, "Oh, it was amazing!" Or like what type of pitch was that? They're giving him all this shit. But I think that the secret of that scene is that both those dudes want to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's weird because Charlie Sheen is such a personality, obviously now in popular culture, and we all have preconceived notions of who he is and what he's like, and I haven't seen this movie before, so when he started being like this bad boy who's in prison, I was like, oh well, that was a self-fulfilling prophecy, like watching. But like they show that that's like kind of just a cover for like his dreams, and like he actually ends up being like kind of a really nice guy in a weird way. Especially, I mean, we can get into this whole thing where this guy Dorn doesn't like him, and he's giving him crap the entire time.
He gave him a fake red tag.
And there's other times he threw a play really bad just to spite Charlie Sheen. And there's a point where this dude's wife sees him cheating on her. Like she notices on TV that he's taking another woman into a hotel room.
Because now that the Indians are popular enough, they're getting TV coverage. And he's not thinking about that.
So he happens to watch the reporter, and in the background, she's watching, and she sees behind the reporter that he's going off with another woman. So she like goes to Charlie Sheen and like gets him to sleep with her by just hitting on him and appealing to his ego and being like, I don't even care about your baseball, I just think you're incredibly sexy.
uses the fuck out of him.
And then in the morning she's like, oh yeah, my husband, and he's like, what the hell, like, and that's not what I was expecting from the character, because it was Charlie Sheen. I thought he was going to be like a womanizer and do drugs and be horrible, and but he was just like this guy who was caught in the middle of this ridiculous thing.
He was a kid.
And
then Jake Taylor comes in, and because they're friends, like Dorn, like he knows the wife, and she's like, "Hey, Jake." And then Charlie Sheen's just like, "I didn't know." I did. Like, and he looks mortified.
And we learn too that like the reason that he's been throwing pitches so horribly his entire life is because
he cannot see.
That was cute too.
Yeah.
So he's been like this misunderstood guy, like who just didn't know he had bad eyesight.
Let's get into. I actually don't know the actor's name. Do you guys know the actor's name who plays the coach?
No.
I often said that if you know who Jim Leland is, I think this is exactly how Jim Leland actually manages. He was the manager of the Marlins when they won the World Series and the Tigers. But so there's two scenes when Dorn plants the fake red tag in Charlie Sheen's locker. Charlie Sheen storms into the manager's office, and he's like, I'm like, you're gonna regret this for the rest of your fucking life. Yeah. Like every time I pitch against you, I'm gonna be amazing, and I'm gonna make you pay for this every time that I face you. And he's like, well, that's great. I love that. But I think someone's fucking with you because I didn't cut you.
Yeah.
And then like, it's not even he realizes he's embarrassed and he leaves. I just lost my train of thought.
I don't know. You're talking about James Gammon.
Is that his name? Okay.
James Gammon. He says that. Oh, and then it was the glasses scene.
Yeah.
And so he's basically like Charlie Sheen cannot find his control, and he's basically having the conversation to send him down. Mm-hmm. And he's like, you have a lot of talent, and a couple guys, get that right. And then he does this amazing thing where he realizes, like, maybe this fucker can't see. and the scene's so great because he's letting him down easy. Like, he's doing the whole thing where, like, you're going to go down to the minors. It's going to be all right. Like, you're really talented, but it's just not going to work out. And then he kind of realizes, and then just kind of makes like a fake eye chart. Yeah. And then it just like cut to Charlie Sheen in glasses and cut to him being like, amazing.
Read me these letters.
But it's a good way of getting that scene. I think that's why Vaughn feels so human, is that he's the one who's under threat of being sent down and being made irrelevant more than anyone else in the movie.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought he did. His performances are great.
Yeah.
What else? We're getting to the end here.
Well, I think that we're getting towards the end, and also getting towards one of the more important elements of this movie, in that the Yankees are the bad guys. And the Yankees are always the bad guys.
Yes. So great.
It's the pinstripes.
Yankees suck. Fuck the Yankees. Also, if you're a Yankee fan, give us 5 stars on iTunes.
Apologies.
My team, the Angels, have given you enough playoff wins.
Yeah.
Yes. So they set up an adversary. They set up the Yankees as the bad guys. I guess that was the hardest thing for David S. Ward to get clearance from. To get Major League Baseball wasn't as concerned with images, but the Yankees obviously have always been that. And I guess George Steinbrenner, who was the owner at the time, Sons are the owner, Steinbrenner. He's a Cleveland guy, and thought that at the end of the day it'd be good to be in the movie. And
they don't really do anything bad except try to win. Like,
no, they're the Yankees.
Yeah.
They're the Yankees. And so I think that's one of the things that's amazing about it, because especially in that division, like if it was just some random team, it would not be the same. Like especially for Cleveland, it's the fucking Yankees. Like, and especially in that time period, it was when the Yankees were unstoppable. So they're set up as the main adversary, and they're the team. So we see that, I believe it's the first game of the season. We see, Vaughn can't pitch to them. Well, Hayes can't hit them. Nothing's going right. And
we see them again later, and that's still the same.
Still the same.
It's like the one team they can't beat.
It's the one team they can't beat, and that's true for almost every team in baseball. Because fuck the Yankees.
There's a kryptonite for every team.
Yeah. And I think that one of the more fun things about this movie too is, and it kind of makes it uncynical, and it's hard to do, where you have this team of fuck ups and they start doing well, and because you see they've had the groundskeepers and these montage people around town. As the team gets better, you see them start to get excited about that, and then you start to get excited for the city, and it's kind of amazing to have a sports film that has the city as one of the main characters in it, and it's part and parcel for the Indians. And it would be like there's a point where there's like a local news anchor you've never seen before wearing a bunch of dumb Indian shit in the hotel lobby. This is actually where Dorn's wife catches him. And yes, it's offensive and racist, but it's kind of amazing that it's not cynical when you get you feel the entire town getting behind the team.
Yeah, even though it's now it's a cliche. I liked the scene where there's a bunch of patrons in a bar watching the game, and when they win, like some working class guy starts hugging this like punk rock person, and they're they hug and they're like, wait a minute, and then like whatever, and they just hug again, and everyone's cheering, and it's just really nice.
Yeah. The slow motion final scene is really great.
Okay, they're in slow motion, and in my head, I'm like, come on, freeze frame, please end in a freeze frame, and it ended in a freeze frame, and I was like,
So yeah, and you kind of get in this last game, everybody kind of overcomes their deficits, and I think in a way, the most humbling one. I love how this movie ends. So basically, there is, Hayes gets on, he can steal. Serrano ties up the game with a home run, and everybody kind of does what they're supposed to do, and then Jake Taylor's up, and I guess this isn't how they actually win, but this is what I super remember about it. And he's calls out like the Babe Ruth shot.
Yeah. And they're like, "Oh my God, no one's done this since Babe Ruth." Yeah.
And then he gets thrown at. And gets knocked, and jumps down. And then he calls the shot again because he's like, fuck you, I'm not going to be intimidated.
Yep.
And then lays down a bunt.
Yep.
Which is the most baseball badass thing. It is so awesome.
Yeah.
And then like his victory isn't, I did it. And I think that this is kind of the metaphor for masculinity in this whole movie of where he doesn't, it's the whole bravado, it's the whole thing of like, I'm doing this, I'm doing, like, look at me. And then it's like, I'm going to lay down the bunt, I'm going to sacrifice, I'm going to pay the dues, and I'm going to run out and blow my knees out.
Yep.
It's done so well where you can tell it's just like, oh, his career's over.
Yeah. And he looks pained.
Yeah.
Running in that scene.
Yeah. Like he's like, it's just, and it's beating out a easy bunt to first base.
Yeah.
And they make that the most dramatic thing. And I think that is the thing that you read that because of his character, how important it is. And as a baseball fan, those are the players that you love. The guys who do that on the simplest, smallest play. Obviously, everything's magnified. I mean, baseball cuts off pieces of itself and feeds it to you. And like, the bottom of the ninth, it's like you're the guy and you're doing that. But at the end of the day, it's running out of a pitch to first base. And that's the moment that this movie chooses to make the big heroic scene.
Yeah, I thought that was really not what I was expecting, too, because you expect it to end on a home run.
Yeah,
bases loaded, grand slam, and so I was like, oh, great, but I was happy, but I was just like, wow, that's not at all what I was thinking.
So that Willie Mays can score that slide into home.
Yep.
Pretty great.
It's good stuff.
And then he sees someone in the crowd who don't got no ring anymore.
What's that, a librarian? Yeah, she's like, oh, I harassed you enough?
She purposely shows that she's not wearing her engagement ring anymore. And in my mind, I was like, is it just in her pocket? And if they hadn't won, would she have done that still?
Do we want to talk about the relationship more? Or are we
I don't really.
It's not.
It's not really a relationship.
It's not really super interesting.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't care about that.
And then, I mean, we kind of missed out. There was a kind of a back and forth between Serrano and the Christian pitcher, but they have a big hugging thing at the end.
They do, and I liked how Serrano, he didn't get to sacrifice a live chicken at the end, and so when he comes out, he's like, Jobu, I've been doing all these things for you, and you still haven't helped me. And you know what? If you're not going to help me, then screw it. I'm going to do it myself, you know? And then that's when he gets so I thought that, he broke free of the stupid thing or whatever.
Right. Or he believes in it more, but it's either... I
whatever
agree.
works. It's whatever works situation.
I think that's the thing.
It's like Dumbo's feather. Whatever works.
It's like that's what cements it is. Just like it's superstition and like whatever it is.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that gets to pretty much the end of Major League. I don't know if there's anything else.
We get a rock and Bill medley song at the end.
Indeed.
Famous for I've had the time of my life. Dirty Dancing just a couple years earlier.
I will say those Japanese groundskeepers, this is so nerdy, but the father has passed away since. The son, when I was looking for information about him, he wrote a really, really long article about growing up as a Sansei, third generation Japanese in Chicago. And
oh, wow.
For me, like my whole life, I've heard everything about the California Japanese immigrant experience and the camps and everything. But reading this whole thing, and there was like his father had to deal with the mob to get their business and
oh my God.
all this stuff about the Japanese community in Chicago that I had no freaking clue about. And it was super interesting. So if you care at all about that, Google this guy.
I would love to.
Yeah.
Post it on the website.
Yeah. Because it was really like a cool story and just something I think, oh, I know all this stuff about Japanese American history, but then I was just like, whoa, what is this?
Dang.
Like, I never even knew. So that was cool.
Nice. I did want to bring up the alternate ending, or what's kind of like an alternate characterization of one of the characters.
Right. So this main, the owner,
Miss Phelps.
This actually brings up two things. Miss Phelps, she was based off of the wife of the owner of the Cincinnati Reds. And there was a point in the movie where they shot her telling the GM, and I think that this is another thing that the GM in this movie, the general manager, he like has to be part and parcel, like she's like of her plan, and it's kind of like the quintessential GM role, where he's just like has to do what she says, but he wants the team to do well, and is like, and so like he's kind of
he doesn't want to move to Miami.
Yeah, like he's caught between a rock and a hard place, but apparently. There was a scene that they shot with her being like, I actually really care about this team.
Yeah, Lou, it's on the Blu-ray. I don't know if you guys watched it, but Lou comes in and says like, I know what you're doing. Yeah. Here's my letter of resignation. I'm out. And then she goes on to explain like, that she actually had masterminded the whole thing. And like, do you think I'd really hire these crazy people?
Yeah, and she's like, everyone has talent that otherwise we couldn't get them.
Yeah,
and
she's
you
like,
were the only guy that we could bring them together.
Yeah, she says like, I specifically went out and scouted each of these players, and I scouted you too, Lou.
Well,
but
and then
it didn't test well.
Yeah, they said that people just wanted to hate her and not have that.
Yeah, so that was the original ending.
Yep.
But I think that there's a way that you could have made her character a little bit more sympathetic without having to go into that much detail. Like at the end, she could have just like acquiesced and started clapping or something, and it still would have showed her as slightly more human,
right?
You know, but instead they're just like, "Oh, just leave her as horrible." You know, like,
because they even shot like the whole scenes during the final game of her in her
like, being
box
excited,
cheering, and everything, and they had to reshoot all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they could have just put in literally one shot of her like
right.
showing that she had given in, and you still could have humanized her without having all that extra shenanigans.
Yeah.
I mean, it's too bad because if you watch the scene, it's great. She's like doing a really great job.
Yeah,
like performing, and it's too bad that they decided to just make her the villain because the audience. Like,
well, and then
we hate her so much. I just want to hate her. I don't want to think she was smart.
And then she did reshoots, and then she did like all the shit where she was sneering and like mocking Wild Thing, which again, when she's mocking Wild Thing, is fantastic. like she's what's the actress's name?
I can look her up here.
But she does a great job in this movie.
Margaret Whitten?
Yeah, Margaret Whitten.
Yeah.
So, what do... how are we going to rate this movie?
Ooh, how many shots of Jobu's rum?
Ooh.
That's a good one.
Very bad.
Well, like, just how many shots am I going to leave for him? I'm not going to take a shot.
No.
Because there's no freaking way I'm taking his rum.
Not supposed to.
They're all offered up to Jobu.
Yeah.
I would like to offer Jobu 8 shots of rum out of 10. Because, I mentioned earlier that I didn't think it was as funny as I remember it, but I feel like the sports drama chops of this film are like so strong that you could, like, whether or not you think it's super hilarious or whatever, you can still watch this as like a great sports movie, and not have to feel like, oh, the jokes aren't landing on me or anything. I just think that the drama between the players, the camaraderie, the way it ends, like the rousing moments at the end are so well shot and realize the relationships and everything, that I just enjoyed it on that level more than thinking it was funny.
Yeah, I will say the same, that I will offer up 8 shots of rum for Jobu. I had very little expectations going into this. I've never seen these movies before. All I knew was that Charlie Sheen was in it,
Sure.
So I had really, kind of weird, low
what
expectations.
Hot Shots offspring is this?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't love The Naked Gun, so I really thought it was going to be in that vein, but I really, really liked this movie. It was funny and kind of heartwarming, and it's just a good sports movie, and sports movies are just fun. It's hard to hate a sports movie that is done right.
Absolutely.
And it just kind of shows, not to wax poetic, but that's the power of sports to bring people together and communities and, to
Root for a
cheer
win.
for. Yeah. And, it seems so silly and non-consequential, but it's just such a, it's something that brings people together and gives us something to have in common.
I am going to give it, I'm going to give it 9. 9 shots of Jobu. 9 shots of rum for Jobu. I think that it is one of the better sports movies put together, especially just for the universal appeal of it. I think it's the thing that I was most impressed by is how much you can see the seams, no baseball pun intended, of what the movie does with montages and how much kind of the craft and structure is simple and obvious, and when you see it in other movies you feel like, all right, well, fuck this, it's cliche, and this movie does it artfully in a way that should roll eyes and that shouldn't hold up, and it does in a way that kind of shocked me, honestly, of how much it used montage to serve character and how much you could see what it was doing and you knew how it was manipulating you and how it still worked. And I think that ties back into just, you can't hate a good sports movie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Major League. Predictions for Major League 2. What's happening next season?
Yeah, so I was going to say this movie came out and did pretty well.
Yeah.
It ended up making about $50 million back
Indeed.
in 1989. And in today's standards, it has an 82% on Rotten Tomatoes. So
As it should.
we were right in line with our numbers here.
And then I don't know the year of the next one. I know that at some point,
Is there a subtitle?
It's just called Major League 2.
Okay.
David S. Ward went on to write Sleepless in Seattle.
Yeah, the next one comes...
Sorry, I mean, oh no, gross. Sleepless in Seattle, what a dumb chick flick.
The next one is 1994.
Oh, so Sleepless in Seattle was before that, I believe.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so not too far later. I don't know, where this can go from there. I guess
we're going to see another season.
They're
where
going to make it to round 1 of the playoffs.
Yeah, where maybe they're on top and they're not going to... They're going to start on top because they just won the playoffs, and then maybe we're going to see that, I don't know, what they did in Major League wasn't enough or something.
Yeah, like a sophomore slump or a decline.
Try harder.
Well, again, they just won the pennant.
Yes.
So they could have been knocked out.
So there could be a whole movie of just the next few games in that series.
Yeah.
They just made it to the playoffs. So, and if I know Indians history, and I do.
Well, and I also think that probably a handful of those old guys would have cycled out, and so we'll probably see maybe, I don't know, Charlie Sheen and Wesley Snipes and Dennis Haysbert and all those guys dealing with new rookies coming in.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah, that would be cool. Anything else you think, Ty?
Well, I know. So,
so shut
I think I've probably seen it, but I can't remember anything about it.
I will say, here's what I'll say before.
Spoilers?
No, it's a little bit of a spoiler. I do not know, and I'm actually interested to see how this works. There is a Japanese baseball player in the second film.
Oh my god.
And I don't know if he is a punchline or not.
You can't remember, you mean?
Yes. I can't remember.
All right, we'll see what happens.
But we will find out on that.
You know, the other thing I wanted to quick mention that I tried to look up, but it's hard to search Major League Baseball movie logo.
Yes.
So the poster for this has this really iconic baseball
with a mohawk,
sunglasses and a mohawk.
Yeah.
And I was just curious if there's some story about that, but I couldn't find anything for the life of me about it was probably just some marketing people, but it's I think it carries through.
If you put a mohawk on a baseball back in 1989, you let us know.
It's a cool design because the seams of the baseball make it look like a face, and it's just
you're an American hero.
Whoever came up with that is a genius.
Yeah.
Because
I'm gonna find out.
Yeah. So if anyone knows, let us know. We'd like to hear it. But I think that's going to wrap us up for Major League.
Yeah, if you have any comments or something to add, questions, suggestions for future franchises, email us, sequelrights@gmail.com, and find us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @sequelrights.
Yeah, absolutely tweet us what your walkout music would be or walk-up music would be for your Major League debut if you're coming down to win the pennant. And please rate and review us on iTunes. Give us the 5 stars, the 4 stars, the 3 stars, the 5 stars.
And words, write words.
Write words. We'd love to hear words.
Yep, so we're going to be back.
We have the best words.
We're going to be back next week for another season of baseball with Major League 2. We'll see you then.